Welcome back. Welcome back to Money Honeys. You've got Devin, you've got Chantel, and you've got Fred here. And last week we were talking about the cost of a little mentee bee. And the way we split up this episode is best case scenario, worst case scenario. Last week, if you haven't heard the first episode, I would go back just to hear the best case scenario, the good news. If you're having a mentee bee and need to take time off of your life and your work and your income, what that looks like for you in the best case scenario. Today's episode, we're going to talk about the worst case scenario because, like I said last week, sometimes your life does touch the worst case, the rock bottom, and that's okay. But here you are with your girls. Grab yourself a little glass of wine, a little bevy, a little coffee, whatever it is. Settle down with us. We're going to talk about how much it costs if you need to go to the full length of a mental breakdown.
I am ready. I have my large 40-ounce water cup, so I'm as ready as I'll ever be, I think. But I mean, it's not, this is not I think this is a really important topic. And so you've done a lot of research about this. And so I'm really excited to learn.
Likewise, I haven't done a ton of research. I know people who have had to go to, institutions or rehabilitation centers, and I've never really done a deep dive into really like how much that costs. I more so put to the forefront, like what's the mental cost of having to do that, but not so much what the financials look like. So I'm really interested to learn and find out more.
There's a couple things we're going to talk about first off. So I'll just kick us off with rehab for addictions or rehab, just rehab in general. But when we say the word rehab, the first thing that kind of pops up, I don't know about y'all, but is rehab for addictions. And that addiction could be anything. It could be alcohol, it could be sex, it could be whatever your vice, they definitely have a rehab to help you with it. And the thing about a lot of rehab programs are, especially if you're dealing with a substance addiction, you need to kind of be inpatient for a while so that you can change your habits. Do y'all know people who've been to rehab before?
Yes, a few.
And how long were they checked in?
I think most people go more than once when we, depending on the addiction, most people have to go more than one time. And so there's different programs. There's like 8-week long programs. There's 12-week long programs. There's kind of all different lengths.
Yes, I would say 12 weeks is what I've heard of mostly in my experience of the people that I know.
Yeah, and it differs. Like there's inpatient, there's outpatient, there's like programs where you're inpatient for a while and then you transfer to being outpatient. It really depends on what you're dealing with and just like the rehab center in general. Now, last week we talked about the MHPAEA, which once again is the Mental Health Parity and Addiction Equity Act, which says that most health insurance plans in the United States are required to cover mental health and substance use disorder services at the same level as medical and surgical care. So if you have a job or if you pay for insurance, most insurance companies have to cover rehab. Now, it may not be the rehab that you want to go to, but most insurance companies are affiliated with a rehab center in case that is what you need to do. Now, I was really curious because when I think of like rehab, of course, my brain, the first thing that pops up, which isn't the most representative thing that pops up, but the first thing that pops up is like what we used to see in glossy magazines as teenagers, like Adam Levine is going to rehab, like where are the celebrities going to rehab? So, right? Which of course I wanted to know like how much those rehabs cost, like the nice ones, the ones where I'm like, is it a resort? Or is it a rehab? Which I gotta be honest with y'all. Some of these I'm like, maybe I take my vacation there. Like
Devin, please.
That's a joke. I'm joking.
Devin's like, pool days, spa days, say less.
Sign me up.
Okay, but I asked Google.com, our trusted source, what is the most expensive rehab center in America. And let me just tell you what they offer. And tell me that you don't think this way. Tell me that you don't agree with me. Okay, this place is known for their luxurious amenities and personalized treatment plans. They offer a variety of therapies and activities, including equine therapy, which is horse therapy, yoga, and meditation. They offer gourmet meals, private therapy sessions, and a range of holistic treatments and activities. Doesn't that sound nice?
It really does sound nice. Gourmet meals.
Yeah.
I love that that's the part that stuck out to me.
Yeah.
Yum.
Yeah. No. Yeah. That sounds, man. I mean, everything about it sounds amazing aside from the reason that you're there.
Yeah.
Right? No, exactly. Exactly. And I'm sure, like, you've seen the joke on TikTok that some people are like, my time in the grippy sock ward was some of the most relaxing time I've ever had. It's a joke. This is a hee hee ha ha moment. But
Grippy sock ward is wild.
what? You've never heard that term?
I haven't. That's
Neither have
funny.
I.
Oh. Okay, well, you're not on my side.
Oh. Oh, uh-huh.
So for all of that, how much do you think that would cost for 30 days?
Ooh.
Oh, God. I mean, like, how much does a luxurious all-inclusive resort cost? Because that's basically what
Cost
you're
for
getting.
30
Plus,
Yeah.
plus therapy. Like, even just a therapist's cost alone. Oh, God.
I'm gonna say $75,000.
Oh, my gosh.
Shanti gasped.
I gasped.
What do you think?
Because my estimate was much lower, and now I think I'm wildly incorrect. I was gonna say,
Well, what was it initially?
I was gonna say like 35. Well, what's the location? Remind me. What location are we talking about?
Okay, I didn't tell you about where this is. So this place has a location in California and Connecticut.
Okay, so both bougie ass, expensive ass places.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah. I
Mhm.
mean, I was gonna say 35. I think I'm off. I feel like Fred is closer, but do tell us.
So there's a space called Privé Suisse, and it's PRIV with a little apostrophe dash Swiss. Privé Suisse is $97,000 for a 30-day treatment plan.
Woo!
Mm-hmm.
Whoa.
I know.
So that
shit
is elite.
Better work.
It
Yeah.
Yes. Money back guarantee, 30-day money back guarantee. Like what? That is like where that it feels like that is where like a celebrity fixer, that's where Olivia Pope is going to send her clients for rehab. Like
sure she
no other
has.
option. She
In the show.
absolutely has. She
Right?
absolutely
For
has.
$97,000, you better get me into heaven. You know what I mean? For
kind of circling back to what Chantel said, like usually it's not just once. Like if it was someone I feel like who didn't have, the funds so readily available, they just so happened to have $100,000 for rehab, like I'm sure that I know for me personally, I would be like, okay, let me like make sure I'm really like focused on my shit, like really take this seriously so I don't have to come back and pay another $100,000. Because at this point, I can't go to another rehab center. Like the bar has been set.
Yeah.
right.
You can't go to Kentucky, and no shade on Kentucky,
No.
but Kentucky is just not going to have this. You're going to, like a lot of rehab centers in other parts of the country, like working is actually part of it. Like, and I don't mean outside work, but like contributing to the rehab, like doing the gardening, doing the cooking, being on dish duty. And so it's like you are not getting this experience, I feel like, if you are not along the coasts, or at least not to this extent, you're not getting it.
Yeah, the Ritz-Carlton of rehabs.
Yes.
Here.
Yeah.
The top 4. This is the number 1 most expensive. And then there are 4 other really expensive ones, 3 of which are in California. I feel like California, our precious state of California, has cornered the market on expensive rehab. I don't know why. I don't know why that is. Maybe the
Celebs,
celebrity
baby.
culture.
Yeah, for sure.
The celebrity culture. And it's like, if you have enough money to be spending over a year's worth of salary for most people for 30 days of rehab, like, my bet and wildly problematic assumption is that you are not going to be exiting into an environment where that is drug free. Like, if you have that kind of money, you have that amount of money to get whatever you want, whenever you want, from wherever you want.
Yeah, it's the billionaires club.
It's a billionaires club and enablers and all of that shit. Man.
But let's go to like rehab for the common people, because even though we're hee-heeing and ha-haing about rehabs and the most expensive ones, rehab is necessary. It is a necessary cost for those who need it. On average, a week of rehab in the state of California is about $3,500 to $7,000. This is inpatient care. Now, if it's outpatient, we're talking anywhere from $350 to $2,500. And when I'm saying like outpatient rehab, because I've been to outpatient rehab before for eating disorders when I was a teenager, it's mostly like kind of going to school. You're there for a couple hours. Most of the time you start with group therapy, and then there's some kind of a meal and like exercise type thing that you're doing. So it's like a 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. sort of thing, outpatient. It all depends on the person, and it all depends on the treatment plan. But for the most part, anecdotally, from what I've heard, if you're trying to kick a substance abuse issue, you need to put yourself in an environment where you are like literally not surrounded by, you are in a sober, straight edge environment. And that can be costly. Like I said, a lot of insurances cover it, and it also differs program to program and issue to issue. But inpatient rehab is typically the most expensive option, with weekly costs ranging from $5,000 to $20,000 or more.
No, it's expensive. I mean, I had a family member recently who went and checked himself in. He initially did, and it was just for mental health. And so there was no like substance addiction. It was just for mental health treatment. Which I was really, really like proud of him for doing that. And so he initially did outpatient and then sort of upgraded to an inpatient program, and his insurance covered it. But since the insurance was covering it, the insurance also kind of determined when he was done. So he wanted to stay in the program longer because he found it really beneficial, but the insurance checked with the therapist every week. And so if he happened to be doing well on that day, you know, the therapist has to be truthful and say like, oh, he actually, you know, he's doing well today. And then if you're doing too well on that given day that they check in, then your insurance says, okay, you've been doing well for long enough. So we're going to like, you have to be done with the program. And so that's what happened to him. He wanted to stay for like a couple weeks more, but he was doing like too well.
That's
what?
Yeah.
You're telling me you have to give a B+ effort in rehab so you don't get kicked out.
Yeah. And because he was like, you know, maybe on like that given day, I was having a better day. But the day before I might have had a complete breakdown, or the day after that check-in, I might have had a complete breakdown. You know, it's like, it doesn't matter if it's like, you know, I'm sure they take stability into account a bit, but it's really, you know, it's more based off of just like, how are you doing? Okay, you're good. Okay, we're out. You know, like he wanted to stay longer and he couldn't because insurance didn't cover it, and it was too expensive for him to just pay out of pocket.
That sucks.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a danger to society.
Right.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and a danger to
I,
yourself, depending on what you're in there for, which is why he wanted to stay
Right.
longer. Yeah.
I hate that. I hate that insurance companies are the ones to determine when you're better and
Yeah.
not the doctor or yourself.
Yeah. And it can be yourself if you pay out of pocket, but very few of us have the means to do that.
Right. It's like if you have the means to do that, then you probably will find yourself in Connecticut.
Yeah.
Like I'm not
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
Or Malibu.
I clearly can't do this
Yeah.
on my
Right.
own.
Mm-hmm.
So there are some budgeting strategies if you decide that you need to go to rehab. First of all, first and foremost, take your time. Research, research, research. Now, a lot of times people don't have time. They decide they need to go to rehab and they need to go the next day.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But that maybe this episode inspires you to maybe do a little research for yourself on the side, or maybe do a little research on the side for a friend so you can be the person who hands them. This would be me in any friend group. Me being like, I already did this research
Yeah,
for you. Here it is.
that's absolutely your role.
I mean, you already have done the research. You are now telling us the
Yes.
research. Yeah.
I am a Capricorn. I cannot help it. So you do your research on what sounds best. Again, check with your insurance provider. Again, check and see if you can get an HSA because that can also help. There are financial aid programs, and some rehab facilities offer scholarships. I don't know if Privé Suisse offers financial aid. I'm guessing they don't, but maybe.
Maybe. Who knows?
And then also something I just need to say, because it's coming from the heart. If you think that this is rehab is in your future, if you need it, this is an opportunity to dip into your savings. This is an investment in your mental health. This is an investment in your future. And a lot of times people are like, don't touch your 401k, which is true, or don't touch your retirement, which is true. But if you need to dip into savings for something, it would be this. Now, I say that with caution. You don't want to drain your savings on Privé Suisse. But if you need help, this is paramount, I think.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Savings are there to save yourself.
Exactly. Let's talk about what we in California call a 5150. Do you know what a 5150 is?
Yeah,
I've
more or
heard
less.
the term. I don't know what it is.
So a 5150 in California, it refers to a section of the Welfare and Institutions Code, and it allows for an involuntary psychiatric hold of individuals who are deemed a danger to themselves, others, or gravely disabled due to a mental health crisis. I have stories where I've been around a person when they've been 5150'd. And it's essentially what it feels like is like calling an ambulance, which we all know calling an ambulance is not cheap.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And in my situation, it was a very calm, this is what we're doing. We called him, the ambulance came, and the paramedics were very sweet and just kind of guided the person onto the ambulance. And that was that. It just depends. Have you all been in that scenario before?
I've not. I know people who have been, but I have not been there when it's happened.
I'm gonna be honest, 5150 is very foreign to me. Like I've heard it used like a term like 5150, but I never actually knew all that it entailed and like the process of what it looked like. Interesting.
I mean, you don't have to have an ambulance. You can literally drive to a hospital and admit yourself. So, but in my scenario, an ambulance came and took this person.
I guess my question for you is, do you feel like there's a difference, like what, as opposed to, because I'm assuming, like you said, ambulances aren't free. So what is the, I guess, benefit of that versus driving to the hospital?
In my scenario, we didn't feel safe to put this person in a car. We didn't feel safe to drive them. So that's why we did that. And also, I know a lot of times, like with people who are living on the streets, you know, they need to be 5150, and like passerby calls who may not be willing. So the benefit is like if you don't feel safe driving this person, because when you get behind a wheel like of a car, that just adds an extra layer of danger.
Yeah.
So, but it depends. In different states, again, this is called different things. In Florida, it's called the Baker Act. It's called Section 12 in Massachusetts. I hate what it's called in New York. According to my research, in New York, it's called the Mental Hygiene Law, Article 9. Y'all need a different name.
Mental hygiene law.
I don't like that at all.
Yeah.
I will commend the state of California for putting a little bit of a ring to it, 5150.
Yeah, there's that. We got that.
I definitely think we have the best, so that's cute. And what it means is usually 5150 means it's a 72-hour hold where you are observed. Sometimes you're given medication, and basically you are in a situation where medical professionals are available to you to help you with your mental health crisis, which could be very necessary. But they're not free.
Yeah.
They're not free. And this is something that I'm actually really mad about.
So what is now I'm like, want to make sure that I didn't miss this. So the 72-hour hold, like, do we know how much that costs? Like, we know how much an ambulance costs, or like the estimate of that, but like, do we know about the 72-hour hold and like what all that comes with?
I'm so glad you asked. It depends on the hospital that they take you to. So like you're going to get different treatment if you go to Cedars-Sinai versus if you go to like St. Vincent's in downtown LA. But in general, if you don't have insurance and you're paying out of pocket for 5150, it can cost from $2,000 to $4,000 for your 72 hours.
Well, and I assume it also probably like depends on if they give you medication, what kind of medication, how much of it, like there's so many different variable costs.
They could discover that you have a brain tumor and that's what's causing you to act erratically. And then you're in the hospital, and that, that's a part of the costs. There's just so much a part of it that we can't really like give you an average number. But if you're just going to do the 72-hour hold and get, I guess, quote unquote, allegedly basic medication, it's anywhere from $2,000 to $4,000, which is ridiculous. If you allow me to get on my soapbox for a little minute, I think this should definitely be subsidized by the state or by the federal government, because someone who's going through a mental health crisis needs immediate help, and they shouldn't be out in a society causing harm to themselves or other people. And people who are looking at this cost of $2,000 to $4,000 may not get the help that they need. So soapbox over. But
yeah.
And insurance does not cover this.
It does. It definitely does if you have it.
Right. Which, yeah, I feel like these days, and also in this economy, less and less people have insurance. Like, there's so many people I've talked to who have just kind of been like, like it's...
Yeah, because it's so expensive. It's so expensive. Like, we all know that we should have it, but if you're paying out of pocket for it, it's so expensive.
It really is.
I know. Some people have to fly under the radar because they can't afford $600 a month.
Yeah.
$600 a month, and then $80 copays, and then, really high medication costs. It doesn't stop at the $600 a month. Like, that's why it's so...
It's wild.
Yeah.
So that is the worst case scenario, y'all. And again, no judgment about there. I hope y'all detect there's no judgment behind best case, worst case. I'm not saying that one is better than the other, because we're all there at some point. But those are the numbers behind the worst case scenario. And I also want to just say, I hope these numbers don't scare you, because I think I've said it again. I'll say it again. A lot of times this kind of help is necessary. And this is the type of financial cost where I think it does merit dipping into your savings or merit asking someone for a loan, because it's important. But we have to be transparent about the numbers, and that's something we do on this podcast.
Yeah.
I learned a shit ton in however many minutes we've been talking. Like, we are not protected. I mean, that's nothing new, but mental health in particular is not protected or taken care of at all, really.
One thing I will say, as someone who's been into rehab and group therapy before, you meet the most interesting people, like people you would never rub elbows with in your like walk of life, but somehow you find yourself there. And honestly, when I think back to my times in rehab and in group therapy, I think about all those people who I sat next to. And we're all there at that specific dumping ground site for a reason, because we're all sharing in some kind of issue.
Did you ever keep in contact with anyone from there?
I do, actually. I went to a DBT group therapy. I've talked about this openly before, which again was not cheap, but it was the best money I could have spent. And I did that for a year and a half. And one of the girlies I was in group therapy with, I meet at the dog park every once in a while. Mm-hmm.
I love that. I hope she's well. Is she well?
She's well.
Good.
She's doing really good.
Good.
She's really good. She's an artist.
Yeah.
Anywho.
Dev, thank you for sharing your journey too, and just being so vulnerable and open about your experiences with rehab, because I know that it's not something that like everyone likes to talk about if it's been in your experience, you know? So thank you for sharing and giving us all of this insight.
Oh, you're welcome. I like talking about it because I think it's a fertile ground for jokes and hee-hee-ha-has. I mean, not the money part, but I have stories where ridiculous things have happened. I made a man cry in group therapy once.
And why is that?
Because he was annoying.
All right. Okay. Yeah, many men are annoying. I'll give you that. Many of them are annoying.
Okay.
All right.
Well, that's all I have to give.
Next week, we're pivoting. We're going to keep it a little light. We're going to play a fun game, and I'm stoked. I can't wait. It's going to be a time. Until next week.
Bye.
Bye.